Lesson 6.2, Writing and Solving Proportions. This is also Lesson 6.3. A proportion is an equation that states that two ratios are equivalent. For example, 2/3 is equal to 8/4. We know this because you can take 2 times 4 to get to 8 and 3 times 4 to get to 12. You also can say that 8/12 can be simplified to 2/3 by dividing by 4. Because they both have the same simplest form, they're equivalent. In example 1, solving a proportion using equivalent ratios. You can see that 3/5 is equal to x over 20. We need to find what x is. So to do that, we know that 5 times 4 equals 20. Because I did 5 times 4 in the denominator, you can do 3 times 4 in the numerator. 3 times 4 is 12. So x equals 12. Please pause the video and try 1 and 2. In number 1, we know that 9 times 3 is 27. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 is your answer. In number 2, 6 times 6 is 36. So 5 times 6 is 30. We also can solve a proportion using algebra. So x over 15 equals 2 over 5. We know we want to find x, and this is dividing by 15, so the opposite of dividing by 15 is multiplying. You can multiply each side by 15, which is 30 over 5, and it simplifies to 6. You can check your work by simplifying 6 over 15, which is 2/5. They are equivalent, they are a proportion. Please pause the video and try 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can use either the algebra way, as it says, where you multiply by the denominator, or you can try to, if you want to multiply, like 7 times 4 is 28, you may try that way. Whichever way works for you. For number 3, 7 times 4 is 28, so 3 times 4 is 12. For number 4, I'll do it the algebra way. You can multiply by 55. So 8/11 times 55, you will get 40. And again, the other way would be to multiply by 5. Multiply by 8. To both sides, that cancels this. And you get x equals 7. For number 6, you multiply by 6. Simplify the fraction, you get 28. In example 3, we're going to write and solve a proportion. The sap of a maple tree is used to make maple syrup. To make 1 gallon of maple syrup, it takes 40 gallons of sap. Write and solve a proportion to find the number of gallons of syrup that can be made from 1,520 gallons of sap. Okay, first of all, our first fraction is right at the top. We have 1 over 40. Now, to set up the fractions, you have proportions. You have 2 fractions that equal to each other. You want to make sure that in the numerator, you have something that relates to each other. In this case, the gallons of maple syrup. And in the denominator, that relates to each other, which is gallons of sap. So, because I want gallons of sap in the denominator, and I know that I want to find out how many gallons of maple syrup 1,520 gallons of sap makes, you put 1,520 in the denominator. Now you can multiply each side by 1,520, and you will get a simplified fraction of 38. About 38 gallons of maple syrup can be made from 1,520 gallons of sap. You really just need to make sure that you're setting up your proportion correctly so that you get the right answer. Because if you would have put 1,520 in the numerator, you would have gotten something different. Just make sure your numerators and denominators relate to each other. We're going to skip number 7. And now we're on 6.3. I'll pause for a moment as you find 6.3 lesson. We are moving on to 6.3. 6.3 is just a different way of solving proportions, and that is called using cross products. A cross product of two ratios is the product, so you're multiplying the numerator of one ratio and the denominator of another ratio. For example, 2/5 equals 6/15. You can multiply 2/15, and that should be equal to whatever 5 times 6 is. Well, 2 times 15 is 30, and 5 times 6 is 30. So they are equal to each other. You might have also heard this called cross-multiplying. Let's try example 2 on 6.3. Again, we are on 6.3. You earn $68 mowing 4 lawns. How much would you earn if you mowed 7 lawns? Okay, we're going to set up the two fractions. $68 mowing 4 lawns was the first fraction. So $68 is the money you earned, so that's your money. And again, the numerators have to relate to each other, and the denominators have to relate. 4 is the lawns mowed. If I know that I mowed 7 lawns, does that go in my numerator or denominator? Well, lawns is in the denominator, so it's 7 in the denominator. Now that we set up our proportions, we can multiply the diagonals, 6 times 7, and that will be set equal to 4 times x. 68 times 7 is 476. Bring down the 4x. And now how do I get rid of the 4 that's being multiplied to x? You divide by 4. You earned $119 for mowing 7 lawns. A quick way that I like to say to solve these problems is I like to say you take the diagonal numbers that you know that you can actually multiply and divide by the third number. And that's essentially what you're doing, because this is going to be 476 divided by 4, which is $119. You are going to pause the video and try numbers 1 through 4. For number 1, you are going to tell whether the ratios form a proportion. So this is a yes or no. Remember that if they simplify to the same fraction, they form a proportion. Or you can also do cross products by multiplying the diagonals, and if you end up with the same number when you multiply the diagonals, they do form a proportion. Try 1 and 2. So I can take 9 times 65 and set it equal to 39 times 15. 9 times 65 is 585. Does it equal, that's the question we're asking, to 39 times 15? Well, 39 times 15 is 585, so the answer is yes. Another way you can do it is to simplify the fraction 12 over 48. That simplifies to 4/15. Well, let's simplify this fraction 6/28. That simplifies to 3/14. Because they do not simplify to the same number, you put no. But number 3 and 4 use cross products to solve the proportion. Remember to multiply the diagonals you know and divide by the remaining number. I'm going to show you, pause the video for 3 and 4. I'm going to show you the long way for numbers 3 and 4. You're taking 14 times 6 and set equal to 42 times x. 14 times 6 is 84. It's set equal to 42 times x. Divide by 42 to both sides. 84 divided by 42 is 2. Remember, these cross out on the right because 42 divided by 42 is 1. So x equals 2. Here we have 9 times 16 is set equal to 4x. 9 times 16 is 144. And that equals 4x, so we divide by 4. 144 divided by 4 is 36. It does not matter which way you choose to solve proportions. The 3 ways that we learned, just to refresh your memory, was that you could have taken, well, 4 times 4 is 16, so 9 times 4 is x. Sometimes that doesn't always work. You could have done the multiplying, in this case here, by the denominator. If that works for you, it's the algebra way, or you can use cross products. I do prefer to use cross products because it works for every type of proportion, but that's up to you and your personal choice.